What a year it has been. From the incredible wins to the unforgettable moments, we have covered so much ground together. And in this special year in review episode, we on the Hybrid Ministry Show, we are celebrating you, our amazing community, with highlights and stats and the best of the Hybrid Ministry Show here in 2024. Make sure that you stick around because I've actually distilled a highlight reel of the 2024 Hybrid Ministry Podcast best moments. This just might be your favorite episode yet. Welcome back, everybody, to the Hybrid Ministry Show. I, as always, am your host, Nate Clason, and today we're going to be taking a little bit of a trip down memory lane to celebrate the amazing year and this incredible journey that you and I have been on together. As we always have on this podcast, we're going to be exploring the cutting-edge ministry ideas and equip you with the tools to dominate the digital space in 2025. It's been a ride in 2024, and 2025 is only going to get better, and it is all thank you to you. You know, in 2024, we released a total of 52 audio podcast episodes because we release one every single Thursday. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet, wherever you listen to your podcast, it's free and it will show up in your podcast catcher every single Thursday. Why? Because youth ministry often happens for most youth ministries across the country on Wednesdays. So who doesn't need a little jolt of energy to get them through the rest of their week on Thursdays? But 52 episodes released because we have not missed a single Thursday in the 2.5 or so plus years that we've been doing this podcast. So I just want to share with you some highlights. So the top performing video over this last year was a video that I titled Top 5 Last Minute Game Ideas. If you're watching here on YouTube, you can see some of the clips being overlaid with B-roll. We also, over this year, we've had 9 different playlists that we've worked through, and so in each of those playlists there's obviously a top performing video in each of those playlists. And so our very first playlist we had was the 2024 on-demand masterclass, and in that video the 5 no prep games was a part of the masterclass, and that video had 361 views. And so that was not only the number one video for the year, but obviously the number one in the masterclass playlist. We also dropped a bonus, you might not know this, we dropped a bonus playlist called the Friday Game Day series. It released every Friday on YouTube, and we covered 9 of my favorite DYM games that I use. And so actually, if you head to any of those or link down below in this episode, 9 of my all-time favorite DYM games, I'm giving them away to you completely for free. They are games that are on the website, the Download Youth Ministry website, but I'm giving them away to you in this episode 100% completely for free. And the best performing video in that playlist was the GIFlashback episode. We also went through a playlist titled Some of the Youth Pastors' Biggest Problems, and the number one episode in that was Youth Ministry Planning Weekend Services versus Mid-Week Programming. And actually in that episode, we ranked Youth Ministry Curriculum. Spoiler, it's co-leader. You should try it. In fact, if you haven't yet, hit the link down below, sidekick.tv/pricing. If you've never signed up for anything with DYM or co-leader, use the code HybridMinistry10, all one word, for you 10% off your first order. We went through the YouTube for Youth Ministry playlist, and the best performing video in that playlist was the flagship title episode, YouTube for Youth Ministry. I then took you through some of the hybrid ministry tools and gear that you needed, and the best episode in that, the highest performing episode, was the best gear for digital ministry in 2024, must-have tech accessories. Then over the summer, we went through an interview series. And that episode, the one that was best in that playlist, was the solution to distractions at youth group, where I interviewed my good friend Josh Boldman from Download Youth Ministry, Sidekick, and co-leader. Then we went through Meet Generation Alpha, and in that playlist, the Aura and Bark versus Covenant Eyes, an honest youth pastor review, was the highest performing video in that playlist. Finally, I went to my social challenge framework, which was the 4 things that I'm creating content with students and for students. And I can't tell you, I think that might be my most popular playlist to date cumulatively, and just word of mouth and things I've heard from youth pastors on the street. So thank you so much for that feedback. But the best episode in that one was the third one, how churches can use social media, ideas and examples. And finally, the Sidekick, more engaging youth ministry. Again, the best episode in that one was the live Sidekick demo at the date of recording. And again, don't forget code hybrid ministry 10 if you're interested in Sidekick, or link down below for how we are using two computers to run Sidekick and ProPresenter seamlessly to switch between the two. Grab that Blackmagic video switcher. It will make your life so much easier. Now listen, on YouTube in total, we had 84,569 views, including our shorts content, with 522 hours of watch time and 151 new subscribers. And in the youth ministry space, that is a fantastic number. And I'm so thrilled with those stats and with those numbers, simply because here I am in my guest bedroom late at night recording a podcast into the back of my cell phone. And I have a real job, and I'm just doing this on the side with my own sort of like equipment at home. And so thank you so much for your support. You might also not know this, but we have an audio-only podcast that drops anywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify or Apple Music, not Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. And we've had almost 5,000 downloads. Our biggest month was by far August, with almost nearly 1,000 downloads in that month alone. And the number one downloaded audio podcast was my interview with my brother himself. The YouTube video is linked down below in the show notes, but it's my interview with my brother Nate Clason. We talked about social media and how he's doing it in his context and in his youth ministry. So shout out to all of you. Again, thank you for an amazing year. Thank you for cruising through those stats with me. But what I wanted to do now is I wanted to share some of the best comments that we've gotten so far this year and so far to date. So from Jesse Johnson, first of all, he disagreed with my take on coffee and saying that Dunkin' was terrible, which I'll give him that. It's not great. It's a chain. But if I have to choose between that and Starbucks, that's what I'm stuck with. That's what I'm going to choose. But he said this. He said, using polls in the welcome loop in Sidekick is so easy. Can't believe I didn't think of it. Excited to try that one out. Claire said this in our Best Parenting App podcast. We use Bark, and it has been so wonderful for our family. We have an 11-year-old, and it has been a lifesaver. We can monitor everything that she does online, block her from seeing certain websites, track her locations, etc. Recently, she disabled the app because her and my husband, we both get notifications, so we went to our daughter. Immediately, turns out she had disabled it because she wanted to watch South Park and Family Guy, as well as some other PG-13 movies. She said, nope. Luckily, my husband and I got there before she could see anything inappropriate. We're grateful for Bark for protecting our little girl from online dangers and protecting her from innocence and inappropriate content. We love Bark. Paul Turner said this about our why your youth ministry follow-up isn't working. He said, this is great stuff. Lots of idea. I went and bought it, talking about the box that I sold. I'll be sharing this with my newsletter. If you ever want to collab, let me know. Keep up the great work. And finally, a frequent guest here on this podcast. Over a year ago, we did a Christmas episode together. He was also on one of my interview series over the summer, Eric with the K. Williams. He said, this is great. Anyone starting out needs to watch this. And he's talking about my church social media from scratch episode in the hybrid ministry tools. Man, what an amazing year. But if I'm looking back and if I'm taking on some of my reflections and kind of key moments, I'd have to say it's two individuals, a guy by the name of Tim Kelly and Kendall Yeaton, both, by the way, who happen to live in the state of Indiana. I don't think that they collabed on this, but both of them at two different times. Tim actually reached out to me for some custom coaching this year, and that was a super fun and super just honestly rewarding process to walk through, and it showed me the value of custom coaching, because what I would have recommended to you in my guest bedroom and to the back of my cell phone camera was a little bit different once I started talking to Tim, which is why I believe custom coaching is valuable for anyone who's interested in it. Link down below if you want to inquire about what that looks like. It is a very modest and a very cheap price for custom coaching. Or if you don't want like the one-on-one Zoom type interaction, consider joining our Patreon page. That's $1 per week for a bonus episode, $4 per month, and I'll just share stream of consciousness ideas, and you might not need the actual like coaching, do this, but you'll get to glean ideas. And then I was at the DYM 100 conference a month ago or so, and Kendall walked up to me and he said, man, thank you so much for your podcast. It's really helpful. It's really beneficial. I shared your playlist, your ideas with some of our social media people, and it's incredibly, incredibly helpful. And so it's just really rewarding for me to be able to do this and just put this content out into the world, out into the ether, and get feedback from real live human beings and real live people who have come to me in different instances, in different cases. Tim, all virtually, Kendall in person, just saying, man, thank you for what you're doing. It really is helpful to me to hear that. And so if you have feedback or anything like that, I would obviously and always welcome that. Lines and channels of communication are completely open. Here on this podcast, we have a couple really cool benchmarks. Just the month of December, we launched a Patreon page, are selling a couple of products over there, as well as that monthly podcast that I was talking about. And so that's a pretty fun kind of benchmark, kind of new thing for us, a new endeavor. We'd love to have you check that out if that's something that you're interested in. And then also, back in August, I got the opportunity to start posting these podcasts to the Download Youth Ministry blog. So if you're interested in that, you can go to blog.downloadyouthministry.com to check that out. And the link down below introduces my very first post on there. Actually, Josh Boldman, he introduced me, and then I now am an author there on the DYM blog. So that's something that's really, really exciting. But speaking of Josh Boldman, as well as